I'm thinking about correspondences, and this is partly, I guess, triggered by some things I was thinking about last week when I was talking about binaries, particularly in relation to Helene Cixous' article called Sorties, when she identifies different binaries, male, female, black, white, high, low, good, bad, those kind of binaries, and then indicates that that binaries on one side of the opposition tend to cohere. So we associate, I won't repeat the whole thing, but we associate terms on either side of the binary with one another in a kind of correspondence way. And that's got me thinking more about correspondences and the fact that we tend to use correspondence. It tends to be a very active process within our cognition. And I think that has, well, kind of positive and negative effects, if you like. If I can just run through my mind some of the ways that correspondences work and just see if there is any validity to that. And what I'm thinking of right now as an example is this is things that correspond to up and down. Up, down. It's up, down is part of our completely, totally embodied experience. It comes as a function of living on a planet that's got gravity in it. Up is where your head happens to be in space, but on a planet, up is counter to the force of gravity, down is in accordance with the force of gravity. So up and down has a particular kind of fundamental embodied ontology. It just is there. But we do associate certain things. There are other correspondences with up and down. So for example, up tends to be where the light is and down tends to be where the dark is. You know, but if I do this with my head right now, I can kind of feel the gradient of light increasing. There's no surprise there, that's where the sun usually is. So we should see that, and I know that that appears to be, if not hardwired, then at least it's enough of a regularity in our experience that, for example, shading in two-dimensional images gives us an awful lot of information about up and down. There's quite a famous image, sometimes called an optical illusion, but that doesn't really capture it, where a series of circles, and they're shaded, so some of them look concave and some of them look convex, some of them look like they're sticking out as blisters, and some of them look like they're indentations. But the only difference is that some are shaded at the top and some are shaded at the bottom. But our habitual assumption that light comes from the top, because we live on a planet that's got a sun in the sky, of course, organises that image of these identical circles, organises that into the impressions of dimples and pimples, if you like. Okay, so light and dark correlates with up and down, but other things also correlate with up and down. So, for example, weight and absence of weight correlates with up and down. Heavy things go to the ground, and light things, very light things, rise. Smoke rises, flames rise. In water, things that are buoyant rise, things that are denser than water sink. So there's a correlation there, which again maps onto the vertical dimension to do with weight. I'm just trying to think if I've got any other correlations with that. I've probably got others, but I can probably work with just those. So in the vertical dimension, we've got two correlations. One of which is about light, visible, the glowing stuff in the sky, and one of which is about weight and density. And there's no literal correlation, there's no direct correlation between the two terms on either side of that. There's no direct correlation between weight and illumination. They both connect to this shared correlate, this vertical dimension, but there's no direct connection between weight and illumination. And yet, I would argue, we do draw correlations. We do the correlations that connect kind of diffuse into their various correlates. So we do start to make connections across those distinctions, even when the source of that correlation is absent. So, well, I am thinking of, I guess, what's it called? Heidegger. he talks about Lichtung or Lichtung in some of his writings, which is translated as the lightening or the lighting variously. And in different periods of his writing, he talks about that either as illumination. So he talks a lot about being in the forest clearing, and the light from the light from above sort of flooding the clearing, which is definitely an illumination use of the word lightening. But at other places he talks about lightning as when, for example, you take a ship off its anchor, or you raise the anchor on a ship and allow the ship to float free, if you like. It's no longer held to the seabed, it's no longer tethered, it's no longer secured to the bottom, and it has the potential to betray its buoyancy by floating around. And I think what's going on there is there's a kind of blending across those two different metaphors to do with illumination and to do with absence or presence of weight, held together around this central correlate, which is to do with this vertical dimension, and the fact that both those two other things correlate with that. I'm just trying to think of another example, actually, because the Heidegger one isn't very good, really, I don't think. The one I've used before, which I'm not totally convinced by, is one that comes out of that Norman Greenbaum song, Spirit in the Sky, where he's kind of talking about God, I suppose, or some kind of higher power. And what I was asking in that video was why was the spirit in the sky, and why was it called a spirit? And I think what's going on with that one is there's a correlation between elevation, height, going upwards, correlating with light, because that's where the light is, and that's where and we often talk about the higher power as being kind of flooded with light, or the source of light, and spirit, that's where evaporated, methylated spirits go to. That might be overly literal, but I think there is a sense in which when we talk about spirit, we are mobilizing metaphors of evanescence and vaporousness and gaseousness, and the kind of opposite of the earthbound and gravity-bound weighty substances of matter. So I think we kind of define spirit in opposition to weightiness. So again, you've got this correlation of height across this kind of substantive quality to do with absence of weight and to do with illumination. And the height is kind of it's kind of irrelevant. It's kind of, that's just the point where the blend takes place, it seems to me. I'm not really sure what I've got to be clear at all in that, but yeah, all I'm saying is really that our ability to correlate, which seems to be absolutely a fundamental part of our cognition, produces those kinds of effects. I haven't really got on to talking about why some of them are positive and why some of them are negative. Yeah, I'll try and come on to that later. I can't really get to it right now, I don't think. But we do seem to have this inevitable capacity, if that's the right word, to smush our correlations, to smush our metaphors into one another, to find correlations around the binary and around other kinds of structuring mechanisms, despite the fact that there's no direct connection between them at all.